Many veterans who are into running think that, you need to run, every day of the week or for long hours if you're going to train for a marathon. But what if you could split up your long runs and still build the endurance you need without wrecking your joints, without wrecking your knees? I'm Dr. Peralta, physical therapist, run coach, Marine veteran, exercise physiologist. Over the past 10 years, I've helped hundreds of everyday people, including veterans, get rid of pain, rehab injuries, and hit major running goals like completing marathons. So in this video, I'm going to show you a smarter way to train for a marathon using bunched long runs, splitting up your long run into back-to-back sessions so you could build your endurance and reduce your risk of injury. Here's what we'll cover: what long runs are and why they work, the key benefits for older vets and injury-prone runners, exactly how to implement them into your training without getting hurt. So stay tuned because I'll share free resources you grab to start training smarter the right way. So the Marine Corps Marathon alone had over 23,000 participants in 2023, with thousands being active duty service members and military veterans. One of the top questions I get is it possible to train for a marathon if I, only ran for 2 days a week? It's not optimal. However, yes, if you, approach it strategically with cross training, strength work, and smart mileage buildup. For most beginner marathoners, right, they could build up or ramp up in a marathon training block to 30 miles per week and still, cross the finish line of a marathon. But here's what that could look like, right? So, if you just train 2 days a week, maybe in the first few weeks, right, you do, let's say the goals for like 15 mile long run, or let's call it 20-mile long run. Maybe do 10 miles on Saturday and then 10 miles on Sunday. You can get your 20-mile a long run just by splitting it up in half, right? And as you approach 30 miles later on the training cycle, maybe do 15 miles on Saturday and 15 miles on Sunday. So you get all your total mileage in just 2 days. It is possible. Is it optimal? No. That's why I also say if you can squeeze in a third day, so that way you could break it up. So let's say you're aiming for 30 miles in the week. You could do 3 miles on Wednesday, 12 miles on Saturday, and then 15 miles on Sunday. And you get your 30 miles total for the week. Right. And you can also do this with a traditional 5-day plan and just breaking up your long run. Let's say it was like, a 20-mile long run. You could break it up into a 10 and 10 on Saturday, Sunday, and have other runs throughout the week. So for older vets those who are prone to injury, I recommend the run walk method. Or run a mile, walk 1 minute. Right. That's one variation. There's other variations, of course, where you run 5 minutes and then walk a minute. You could look it up. I've also made other YouTube videos on the run walk method. However, this keeps you moving without overloading your joints and is a form of like interval training where you run, then you walk, or you work, then you rest to allow your body to rest and not have so much pounding because now you have some recovery built into the run. And you actually finish a marathon doing run walk method. But anyhow, going back to bunched long runs. So what is it? So instead of doing a continuous long run, right, you split into two runs within about 12, 15-hour window. For example, you run 8 miles on Saturday evening, then 10 miles on Sunday morning, and you'll get 18 miles. For what it would have been an 18-mile long run they did on a Sunday, you split it up, the 8 on the Saturday and 10 on the Sunday. So why this works, this stimulates the fatigue. Right, got your body fatigued. It's depleting your glycogen stores, your energy storage, because you store glycogen in your muscles and your liver. Right, you do that in a long run typically, but instead you break it up into two long runs of a slightly lesser duration, but the cumulative is still the same, with less risk of breakdown and injury. Because now you could get to rest a little bit in between long runs instead of being overly fatigued trying to do a continuous like 18-mile long run. So what are the key benefits, right? We talk about reduce injury risks. So the long continuous run often leads to sloppy form as fatigue gets in, especially if you're more a beginner marathon runner or a veteran who just got into marathons. And sloppy form can lead to more pounding of the knees, hips, or back. And this is where you get these kind of overuse injuries, these non-contact injuries from running. Like you didn't even trip or fall, right? No one even tackled you. You ended up getting a knee injury just from the impact of running because your form's breaking down, you're fatigued, your body's not used to the high impact of running. So a bunch of long runs, reduce the total time spent running continuously, therefore lowering the stress on your joints. And you also get the same physiological gains, right? Your body doesn't fully replenish the muscle liver glycogen in those 12 to 15 hours. That means it's kind of glycogen depleted, yet this means the second run feels like a continuation of the first. You get nearly identical endurance benefits without the overuse, high impact forces going on the body because now you have, you slept, you're able to recover a little bit between the long run bouts. This also helps build mental and physical resilience, right? Running the second session on tired legs trains your body and mind for the wall you'll face on race day. Make those 18, 20-mile continuous runs far more approachable later in training. That means and a caveat doesn't mean you don't ever do a continuous 18-mile run or a 20-mile long run, is that you don't have to do them multiple times during a training block. Maybe you only do one or two of them during your training block, and other ones you could break it up. So it's easier to schedule. It's perfect for busy veterans or everyday athletes with work, family, and limited weekend time. These are the folks that call weekend warriors who typically only get most of their training in on the weekend. So instead of blocking off 4 hours for a single run, you can fit in two shorter sessions into your schedule and still get to do whatever you have to do, weekend errands you have to get done later in the day. So how to incorporate bunch long runs, right? Use them sparingly. Maybe you do 4 weekends where you do the bunch long run, and then you space them out maybe 3 weeks apart. And it's ideal for injury-prone runners, beginners who are trying to hit maybe higher mileage, and anyone who takes more than 4 hours to complete a 20-mile long run, right? So if it's taking you more than 4 hours, it could be a good strategy to break it up so you're spending less time on your feet in one continuous session. Okay, so again, examples, right? If you need to do 18 miles, you could do 8 miles on Saturday, 10 miles on Sunday, right? Or if you had to do a 20-mile long run, you do 2 separate 10-mile runs. And how to optimize this, right? Use strategically, not exclusively. So you still want to keep some traditional long runs in your plan, right? If you had like maybe 2 18s, 120, and a 22 planned, replace 118 with a bunch run. All right, or maybe replaced 120 with a bunch run, etc. Recovery comes first. Always take a full rest day after the second run. For example, if you run Saturday evening, then Sunday morning, treat Monday as a no-run day. Don't even do a recovery run, right? Especially a beginner. A lot of times people think, beginners think recovery run is they're recovering, and in fact, there's such a beginner level that a recovery run is still of a workout. It's actually better if they just skip the recovery run altogether and just complete rest. They could go for a walk, but don't fool yourself that you're doing a recovery run when you're at a beginner level. Yes, there's certain advanced athletes or elite runners who can do a recovery run and it's truly recovery, but for many beginners, they might as well skip the recovery run and just have an actual recovery day with no running at all. Stay at an easy pace, especially if you're a beginner when you're doing these long runs or even bunched long runs. Both runs should feel comfortable, right? It should be like zone 1, zone 2. It should be like a conversational pace. You should be able to hold the conversation for the whole thing. You'll still get fatigued, of course, and also do the run walk method. So you're breaking it up, right? Especially if you're prone to injuries, you're a bit older, you're a veteran who's getting into running. I'm a big fan of the run walk method, right? Again, you could run the mile, walk a minute every mile. And don't do any tempo or speed work on these days. And also don't do a heavy strength training set on those days either, right? So don't do a heavy lower body strength day on the same day you're doing the long run. So additional application tips, right? So 2 purposeful run sessions plus 3 days of cross training can get you marathon ready. Again, you're not going to be having the best. You're not going to be an elite runner, right? Obviously, if you want to qualify for the Olympic trial qualifier marathon time, you're going to have to train a lot more than just 2 runs a week. However, for most everyday people who just want to cross the finish line, veterans who get a very busy schedule, it is possible to do just 2 long runs and then 3 days of cross training, right? So you still want to do some cardio, and this cardio could be in biking, swimming, rowing, Olympic, even race walking, right? You could race walk and get yourself in a cardio state by, speed walking, right? And then you want to do it like 30 to 60 minutes, 3 days a week of this cross training. Again, cross training is like other activities that build up your aerobic fitness. And then you also want to do strength training, at least, hit all the major muscle groups twice a week. And then you also want to do some mobility work, at least 3 times a week, or even daily if you do shorter mobility bout sessions. This helps balance your knees, hips, and back, especially important if you had prior injuries of, maybe you sustained service-related injuries or just injuries from, just living day-to-day life, even just a desk worker with back pain. So I worked with a Marine vet who had been dealing with chronic knee pain and thought that his, endurance running days were over. He thought he'd never be able to run a marathon. But we switched him to just, training 2 to 3 runs per week, to cross training sessions and doing bunch long runs every 3 to 4 weeks. And he completed the Marine Corps marathon pain-free, right? And he was able to finish it under 4 hours. So if you're a veteran who wants to train smarter, avoid injury, and cross that marathon finish line strong, I got a free resource as I lays out the exact framework. Click the link in the description to start your journey today.